What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Loyal Sun Show. That's at the Loyal Suns on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Follow us there and follow us here anywhere you get your podcasts for Pitt sports content you won't want to miss. If you love the fact that camp is starting this week and hate how far actual football still is, this is the place for you. The Loyal Sun Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt athletics fix, brought to you by Section 5. We're back. It's pretty much camp season. Some of you may be listening to this after the start of camp, but this episode's coming out on Monday, so we've still got another day before camp actually starts, but it's pretty much all football mode at this point. We're back. We're itching for football. I know I've been searching the web for any bit of video, whether it's from Steelers training camp, any practice videos from the Pitt off-season workouts. I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel here, trying to get my football fix in, but we're not too far. Squid, how you feeling?
Oh, I'm pumped. We talked with Chris Peak today to really finally get us in that camp mode. I talked about some position battles, talked about what to expect. We talked about a million other things that were extremely off topic, but very entertaining. So
Lemon pepper wings from Magic City.
Yeah, that's what we call a tease. So keep listening for all that and more. But yeah, you said it best. I was watching some videos of Pickett throwing touchdowns in Steelers camp and was thinking about how cool it'd be if you're allowed to do that at Pitt training camp, but college practices are more locked down than like Area 51. So good luck with that.
Yeah, Narduzzi doesn't want any more eyeballs than there needs to be on any bit of practice. So, yeah, I've watched a lot of those Pickett videos as well. Couple things to note. It's great to watch, look at this deep ball that Pickett threw to George Pickens. What a ball. And then also every other video, I'm like, Alex Highsmith absolutely just would have sacked him in a live game. Training camp videos are so hard to take in. And it's also your team going against your team. So you're like, oh, nice, 50-yard touchdown. That means our defense also got burnt. So, yeah, training camp videos are weird, but I'll take that's all we got right now, so I'll take what we can get. But like we said, we talked to Chris Peak for about an hour. He was amazing as usual. So without further ado, here is the Loyal Suns with Chris Peak.
Please welcome back to the show a very special guest, Pitt sports reporter extraordinaire, Chris Peak. Chris, how are you doing today?
Doing great, guys. I'm fitting to talk a little Pitt sports. I mean, it's always it's fun. Was it last summer that we did this before?
It was.
When was that?
I think the dead of June or maybe May.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's been too long.
Are you going to explain to the people why you just dropped the finna?
Does that need an explanation? I mean, clearly it's a really popular way to talk and a common thing to say when you're fitting to do something. Now, I've made the joke before that I would read that on Twitter or whatever, and I had no idea what it meant. I thought it was short for finally. I didn't realize it meant fitting to or fixing to or about to. And, shout out to Vincent Davis for his post-game interview after the Georgia Tech game in 2020 when he said they were fitting to get crazy or whatever they were going to do. Not too crazy because of COVID, but I was like, oh, that's what that means. And so I'm trying to work it in 3 years later. I'm trying to work it into my sort of daily lexicon. It's not really catching on here in the Peak household, but we'll keep pushing it. We'll keep working it a little bit. I'm workshopping it. I guess I'm workshopping it. So I tried it out here on the Loyal Suns. So how did it go? Did it work? I mean, did I use it right?
But for the record, Vinny Davis said they're finna get lit.
Oh, finna get lit. See, I got to go one word at a time. I can't take the whole thing at once. Do
you know what lit means?
I think so.
Okay, yeah. Just making sure.
Yeah, I'm on that. I mean, I appreciate it. You guys are younger. You're boots on the ground type of guys, and I'll have to turn to you more often when I'm unclear about some of these things. I feel really old in the midst of this conversation, but that's all right. What are you gonna do?
No, please come to us. You aren't gonna get anything useful out of us in terms of analysis or scoops. Let us translate the youth for you.
That's what I need. I need a youth translator. God, I do really feel old, man. It's like, Jerry DePaula needs a youth translator too. Jerry comes to me and he's like, Chris, what did that mean? And I'm like, Jerry, that's a great question. I'm like texting you guys, like, what does this mean? So I can tell Jerry, so I can still look like I'm connected to the youth.
It's all comparative. You just got to be younger than the guy next to you.
That's it. What do they always say? Like, you don't have to, if you're going to be chased by a bear, you don't have to be the fastest person. You just have to be the, not slowest, right? So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, you don't have to be the youngest person on the pit beat. You just got to be younger than Jerry. So, and we're there.
Yeah, just stick yourself between Jerry and Harry Paceris at the next couple interviews, next couple press conferences, and
Harry might be older than me by a couple years, actually.
I was gonna say, David, are you calling Harry old?
No,
he's never.
He's not old, no. But I think I mean, of the people who cover the team like daily, I might be the second oldest after Jerry. I think I'm older than Carter. I think I'm older than Noah. I'm older than Jim. Who else is really there often? Oh, what's his name? Carl. I'm older than that guy. Yeah, I'm older than like everybody other than Jerry, man. I have to wear a hat because I have all this gray hair and it's thinning.
You're a vet. You're a gutty veteran. That's how I like to think of it.
I guess, yeah.
And Pitt gives you gray hair. There's no escaping that. We'll be there in about a year or two, the way everything goes.
Yeah. It'll turn gray and then it'll just fall out. It'll thin and then it'll be gone altogether.
Yeah.
And,
it's like when you're the president. Barack Obama got like entire head of gray hair after 2 years of being president, covering Pitt. Expedites that process too.
That's absolutely true. 2005, when I first started covering the team, I looked like Barack Obama. It was amazing. And now you see me. I mean, it's just total disaster since then. But
I've always said that about you.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I mean, there wasn't Twitter and stuff like that, but like, I'd put my picture out wherever I could, and people were like, wow, what's the senator from Illinois doing covering Pitt? It was the weirdest thing, but
last time you were on here, we said that you were the godfather of like Pitt media, and you balked at how old being like a godfather made you sound. And now you're here talking about gray hairs. My question is, what did Keaton Slovis do to you?
I mean, like,
you've aged so much in a year.
Yeah, Keaton was a nice enough guy. You know what, Keaton? If you want to be good in my book, you respond to my text messages before you get to your Pitt career. And he did. When he was still going through the transfer process, he was good about getting back to me and stuff. So he was fine in my book. He was a fine guy. He wasn't a good fit for the offense. I mean, I think we all saw that. But, he was a perfectly nice guy. And, look, we all staked all our hopes on him regaining the form of greatness that he had like 2 or 3 years ago. And it obviously didn't work out, but they would never make that mistake again and, hang the season on somebody who hasn't really been good in 2 or 3 years. So I think they learned from that issue and learned from that mistake, and, they'll move on with it,
Yeah.
I didn't like that at all.
I mean,
I guess we'll find out soon.
It's a weird sort of like, I don't know what you want to call it, like synergy or coincidence, or right? I mean, like with Keaton Slovis, it was like, wow, he was great in 2019, set the Pac-12 record for accuracy and or completion percentage. It was, well, you just got to get back to how he was that year. Well, we're kind of doing that same thing again, aren't we? Just got to get back to how he was in 2020 with Phil, right? I mean, it's sort of the same thing, and we'll see how it works out this time. Maybe it'll go better the second time than it did the first, I guess.
Let's take some of that heat off of Phil and put it back onto you.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Since you're here, I wanted to ask if you'd like to take the opportunity to apologize for making me personally believe in Keaton Slovis this time last year.
Yeah. I really, I dug in deep on that one. I really did, and I thought I had good reason to. I mean, there was plenty of evidence of him being good at USC, and I think Pitt was really excited about him. I don't think I anticipated how sort of difficult the marriage was going to be between the quarterback and the OC. I don't think I really anticipated how much they weren't going to really work together. And I don't know about like personally how they got along, but I mean, in terms of the style of the offense, the style of player, I mean, it just never really clicked and cost them multiple games, as we've all probably said, to ourselves and to others many, many times over the past 6 months. And so, yeah, I went in pretty hard on that one. I thought he was going to be really good, and kind of blew it on that one. So yeah, I apologize to you and anybody else who made the mistake of listening to me in the first place. So my bad.
Thank you. I can heal now.
Okay, good. Good. If that's all it took, you could have asked earlier. I would have sent you a DM in like January apologizing if you wanted. I mean,
I think a DM would have been like really weird. If I DM'd you, you wouldn't be here right now if I just messaged you in the middle of May and was like, "Hey man, just want to let you know
I need an apology.
I need an apology. Like I have issues trusting people now. You kind of fucked me up a little bit." You wouldn't be here.
I mean, maybe I'd be like, well, actually, just have me back on your show, and then I'll do it. Let me do it in person. I don't want to send you something, privately. I should do it publicly. So
You're right.
Maybe it would have expedited the process, and I would have been here much sooner.
Fair.
Yeah.
Well, to get past old scars,
Yeah.
there's a reason you're here right now. Pitt camp is starting. I think at the time we release this, it will be the first day of camp, maybe. Sure, let's just go with that.
Yeah.
So how excited are you to get to like watch and talk about actual football?
It's good. Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's great because you can interview players and coaches again, and you can kind of get back into that swing. And yeah, by the time you get to that last week or so of July, it's digging deep. I mean, God, like a week or two ago, I did a Mount Rushmore of Pitt quarterbacks on one of my videos. I mean, like, you've stooped to the lowest of low. My only defense is that was like a mailbag episode, and someone asked that question. I wasn't sitting around saying, "Hey, you know what I should do? I should do a Mount Rushmore episode," because I don't think I've ever actually done a Mount Rushmore episode on any of the videos. So like, I didn't. I guess in my defense, I didn't come up with it on my own. I just answered the question. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff you get into by the time you get to the end of July. So it was good. It's good to get back to actual football. There is the limitation of what they actually let us see during training camp. That first half hour, 40 minutes that we get, it's hard to base a lot off of that. You end up basing a lot of your opinions on what people are telling you on and off the record. But either way, it's nice. And the best thing about it is that once camp starts, that means it's 4 weeks until the games start. And that's ultimately the best thing about camp for me, is that like, oh, look, here's another like official benchmark that we're passing that says the games are about to happen and there's real stuff about to happen. Because even camp gets to be a drag. Like that third week of camp, the players are tired of hitting each other. The coaches are, everybody's all sunburned and cranky and tired and hurt. And and that's not just the media too. I mean, that's the players are even all sunburned and cranky and tired and hurt. I mean, the media by like the third week, we're like walking out to the practice field. We're all like slow and, oh man, this has been really hard camp so far. And it's just, you get tired of it. It's a grind, and it gets boring at a certain point. And so just, the start of camp being as another sort of, like I say, benchmark that you can pass, that the season is that much closer. I mean, that's the best part about it. And, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, because I just want some games,
Are the 3 weeks of camp the busiest you think you'll be all year? Where does that rank in terms of times where you just are constantly putting out content?
I mean, in terms of, it's the most I have to leave the house. I mean, I could say that, as far as like going out every day. During the season, they have us down there for interviews and stuff. Basketball, you have to leave the house a decent amount. I mean, really, like, is in terms of like content and just like straight working a lot, like June and those first 2 weeks of December are pretty high intensity. I mean, because you're just like take like the first 2 weeks of December, right? So after the season ends and the coaches are going out on the road and they're doing like in-home visits and going to see all the recruits and stuff like that. And there's those last few guys they're trying to wrap up, and there's those guys they're trying to close down, like, not lose, like a Jordan Bass last year. And it's like, you sit down. I mean, I got like my legal pad here, and you sit down at the start of every day and like, all right, make a list of like the 10 guys you need to track down info on that day. And then you just start sending text messages, and you literally start the morning with like a blank slate of like no information. And then you just start sending texts and DMs and making calls. Like, oh, okay, they went and saw this guy. Oh, this guy says this. Oh, that guy's doing that. And comes up with 10 other things. And by the end of the day, oh, look, I've got 2,000 words to post on the message board of all these different updates. It's like, wow, that was pretty exhausting, like 10 hours I just spent. You go to bed, you wake up in the morning, and new blank sheet of legal paper, and you make your list of guys you need to run down. And that's kind of how it is in June too, when you're trying to find all the official visitors and find out who's coming in and who isn't and where they're going or what they might be committing and all that stuff. And it's fun. Like it's fun to kind of break through on something like, oh, this kid texted me back, or this coach, or that, whatever. But that's probably the busiest times of year, because during the season, I mean, yeah, we're pumping out a lot of content, videos and articles and all that stuff. But sometimes it's like, well, there's only so many ways you can write that Dayon Hayes is hoping to have a breakout season. There's
Right.
only so many ways.
Which he will.
Oh yeah, it's guaranteed for sure.
Mhm.
I can't believe he's a senior. Just as a brief aside, I mean, has this guy really been here for 4 years already? Does that shock you guys kind of as much as it does me every time I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, he's a senior now?
I think the COVID year and like the extra year of eligibility has just completely warped my
Yeah.
brain in terms of knowing how long guys have been in college, what year they are, how much eligibility they have left. I just kind of forget about it at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you told me he was here for 4 years, I'd believe you. If you told me he was here for 6 years, I'd believe you. If it was 3, I'd be like, yeah, I guess he played as a freshman. I must have forgot something.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And I don't know if it's just because like, oh, time flies, or because like, he's got like 8.5 career sacks. And I mean, I think I expected a little more out of him out of his first 3 years, but when you're stuck behind Jones and Weaver and then Baldonado and then Deslin Alexander comes back for a year, I mean, he had limited opportunities, but like, I don't know. It's just all of a sudden, and I guess he has another year. He could come back in 24 if he wants as a super senior, but I'm just like, oh, where did the time go? I feel like it was just yesterday. I was, at Westinghouse High School on signing day to watch him like officially sign. But I digress, not to get too far off course there. But I mean, during the season, it's sort of, I don't want to say the content's a little bit easier, but it's not like that process I just laid out where I'm, on a random Tuesday in September, I'm sitting down, chasing down all these leads or recruits or what have you. I mean, we're still doing some of that, but it's not nearly what it is in January or December and June. Those are the big high output months for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we don't blame you, because our most recent piece of content, we just rewatched the UCF game from 2019 and talked about it. We gave up on trying to think of new, fresh ideas. We're like, let's just watch an old game that was good.
So, I mean, I replied when you guys were looking for suggestions on games to watch. I replied to that. Like, dude, pick the bowl game against Houston. Rewatch that. Rewatch the Georgia Tech game in 2014. I mean, like, pick something, rewatch the Notre Dame game in 2012. Yeah, you picked a win, an exciting win. I mean, like, think about, like, if you watch one of those games, it came down to, like, if you watch the Notre Dame game in 2012, you could have a little counter in the corner of the screen of all the times Tino failed to convert a third down in the fourth quarter, right? Because Tino goes out after the game and says they lost the game because Kevin Harper missed field goals. Never mind that Tino never converted a third down in the fourth quarter. And if he converted one of those, he could have set up a game but I mean, like, I think you could have had so much more fun in a almost sort of diabolical kind of way if you watched a game like that, a real gut punch, like, just brutally bad game. Watch Navy from 2007. You know what I mean? Like, pick something at Youngstown State in 12. There's any number of games you could have picked. I was disappointed that you picked a win, a feel-good story. I mean, come on. It was disappointing.
It was our first one.
We have to reel people in, then
we do, yeah.
The loss in.
Do you think people would have listened if we were like, hey, here's this fun new idea we're doing to try to fill time? Sorry to say the quiet part out loud. But how would you guys like to relive like one of the worst Saturdays of your life? Is that good for you?
See, I love all Pitt fans. I want all Pitt fans to read my site and all that kind of stuff. But the ones I really want to know are the guys who would be down with that exact thing. Like, those are my people. The ones that like would want to sit back and be like, yeah, let's count how many passes Tino missed on at the end of that 2012 game. Let's make Manti Te'o jokes and that terrible, pass interference call against K1 and the 2 number 2s, all that. That would be my like kind of crowd to like sit around and drink one night and watch that game and just have a blast. I mean, like, when the Aaron Matthews touchdown pass to Kenny's coming, or that Patty's going to throw a touchdown to Dontavius Butler Jenkins. I mean, it's like, okay, good. I mean, maybe it was still exciting. I missed the watch along when you guys did it. Maybe people got really into it. Maybe it was really exciting. But I want to hang out with the people who want to go down the road of the bowl game against Houston. You know what I mean? Or some of those really bad Navy games. I want to, West Virginia in 2005 or something like that. Like I want to. Those are the people I want to hang out with.
Well, there are some games we're going to avoid at all costs, but there are some games that are so bad they're funny, like that Houston game, the Georgia Tech game.
Yeah.
At this point, we're over it. It was so bad we can talk about it. I think
Listen,
that'd be fun.
I don't think a bowl game can make me feel bad about myself as a Pitt fan anymore. So, honestly, next summer we might take you up on the Houston game.
The Eastern Michigan game wasn't like 52 seconds away from making you feel bad about yourself.
Well,
I mean, like, and that wasn't that long ago. That was only 4 years ago. 3.5. I mean, like what a near disaster that was. I mean, like that was less than a minute away from being an absolute tragedy. I mean, like I don't even know how you come back from that. Just getting your tail kicked up and down the field all game by Eastern Michigan. I mean, if they had actually lost it, I think because they won it, we could all just be like, oh, there's a win. Turn the page. Never talk about it again. Pretend it never happened. They were 8-5. That's fine. You know what I mean? Because
exactly.
I spent a lot more time talking about Boston College and Miami that year. Meanwhile, the Eastern Michigan game was just as much of an embarrassment. They just somehow managed to find a way to win it. But if they had lost, you can't tell me you would have taken that in stride.
Yeah, but then Kenny Pickett dropped a dime in the corner of the end zone to win a bowl game, and we damn near set Smokin' Joe's in Southside on fire.
And we would have set Smokin' Joe's on fire as well if they lost.
Yeah. I mean, Smokin' Joe's was getting set on fire no matter what. That was a Tuesday night too, right? Is that what you said? Yeah. Oh,
something weird.
Was it the day after Christmas, day before, something like that?
It might have been. Yeah, I mean, when else would you play a bowl game in Detroit? You're not going to like put it
the
in
Quick
any
Lane
kind of
Bowl
ideal
doesn't get
spot.
the New Year's Day treatment.
No, they're not getting anything good. They're getting a weeknight as close to Christmas as possible. You're right. God, that was bad. Yeah, I mean, I just I blank that game out of my mind all the time. Other than just now to bring it up, because I tried when you said like, "Oh, bowl game can't make me feel bad about myself." I was like, "Well, what's the worst possible thing I can think of?" And that was what I came up with. So.
If you win it, you have all the momentum. You're going to win 10 games the following year. If you lose, it doesn't count. Bowl games are stupid. Simple as that.
You think that, right? Like you think that, but then there's the Sun Bowl in 2008, right? I mean,
the Military Bowl.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
Navy.
That doesn't count either.
No, but the Sun Bowl in 2008 is funny because people very much took that to heart. And people were miserable that offseason. People were miserable that whole offseason about how bad Bill Stahl was and how bad Pitt was going to suck in 2009 and LaShawn McCoy was gone and Scott McKillop was gone. They were going to be terrible, and look how bad that Sun Bowl was. And it's funny because they actually won 9 games that year. Like they were much better that year than they were the previous year when they went 5-7. But because they ended the previous year with the win over West Virginia, that whole offseason was it was great. It was amazing. It was the happiest the team has ever been, or a fan base has ever been after a 5-win season. The next year they win 9 games, but because they have the worst bowl game in history, everybody spends the whole offseason in a dark cloud. So the bowl games, I think, do have an impact on how the offseason feels. I mean, think about what this offseason would have been like if they hadn't beat UCLA, right? I mean, a lot of people would say, oh, it's just a bowl game and it's stupid, but you got a lot of positive momentum out of winning that game, even if you did it. I mean, obviously you did it with some guys that you're going to see a lot more of this year, but I think it did have an impact, though.
And that's why I kind of think that this past bowl game was an exception to my entire sentiment, because we knew going into it, like, well, this is next year's team and Nick Patty. Who we know is playing in his last college football game, so that makes it special. And we're going up against the number 17 team in the country at full strength, minus like Zach Charbonnet maybe. And we did it. So now we feel all warm and fuzzy in here in our chest cavity, because shit, I watched Dayon get 2 sacks. I watched Bub Means and Mumfield look competent for the first time. I watched Rodney Hammond do Rodney Hammond things. And now, like, it's been months and I've been feeling good this whole time.
See,
So you talked yourself into it.
All right, fine, you win.
I think the one time when you could honestly say it really had no impact at all was the Peach Bowl, because at that point they had accomplished so much that year, and then they went into that game and they didn't have Kenny, but it really didn't matter what happened that day. If they won, great, they win. You know, they're a 12-win team, but it really, that one was the only one I could say it genuinely did not matter. The 2015 game against Navy, I kind of feel like didn't matter as much. Pat won 8 games in his first season, had some solid wins. I think everybody kind of felt like, well, this is pretty decent. It would have been better to win than it was to lose, but, you know, not a big deal. But I think the Peach Bowl was the only, like, truly no strings attached bowl game Pitt has played in a long time, where it didn't matter. They could have gotten blown out. And I don't think anybody really, I mean, there are people on the message boards who always find something to complain about, but I don't think anybody was going to take much out of that, because so much had already been accomplished at that point that, I mean, who cares? So, like, everybody was still going to Magic City no matter what. You know what I mean? Whether they won or lost, the lemon pepper wings were still there. So,
Lemon pepper Lou over here.
Man, I make that joke, and this is what I'm ashamed to say it. For all the times I've been to Atlanta to see Pitt play Georgia Tech, I still haven't gone to Magic City. I mean, like, I was almost going to go the day of the Peach Bowl, but they didn't open until like 4:00. I was like, I'm just going to go get lunch. I'm going to go over around 12.
4 years in a row.
I know. They've been down there so many times. I didn't go in 20 because of the COVID year. I just stopped traveling. But I mean, I'd been down there so many times. I really like going there. I have some friends in Atlanta. I like being in that city. It's fun. But for all those times, and so the Peach Bowl, I was like, this is it, man. This is the time. I flew in the night before. I'm going to get some lunch at Magic City. It's going to be awesome. Then I'm going to go to the game. But they didn't open until like 4:00. So still none for me.
Guess I'll have to go to the Peach Bowl again this year.
If they do, I'll plan the trip a little bit better, or I'll just get to the game late because I had to go to Magic City at 4:00. You know, are we recording that? Is that part?
I was just gonna say we're about 20 minutes in, and we got to strip club wings before we got to any like camp preview. I'm so happy you're here, man.
See, Jim never gets into these conversations with me when we do the live stream on Wednesday nights. I mean, Jim needs to be more of a willing foil in these kind of situations. He never spurs me to talk about something like that. Maybe I'll have to bring it up on our next show.
Please do. We'd love to hear Jim's thoughts. He's too good of a guy for this.
I don't want to step on your territory, though. You know, I mean, you guys, maybe you've cornered the market on discussing the strip club wings. So I don't want to infringe on anything if you guys have already been down this road before.
Hear that, boys? Aren't you so proud of what the Loyal Sons brand is? Our position in Pittsburgh sports media,
The one and only.
All right, but seriously, let's talk a little 2023 Pitt Panthers. So we want to pick your brain. What positions do you think will actually have position battles this camp season?
Great transition.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Didn't know how else to do it.
That was, I mean, sometimes you just got to like make a hard left. You know what I mean? Just in the 90-degree turn. I mean, every now and then you got to do it, or maybe it was a 180-degree turn. I'm not sure, depending on how far we had gone down that road. Real battles. I mean, you could look at some stuff like reserve spots on, like if you start on offense, I think reserve spots at like wide receiver, like who's going to be I think the top 3 receivers with Mumfield and Means and Reynolds, who's going to be behind those guys, probably going to be some freshmen in the mix there. So there'll be some battles there. Maybe, I don't know if it's a battle at tight end as much as them just figuring out what they're going to do. You know what I mean? Are they going to keep trying to use Gavin Bartholomew up on the line of scrimmage and working him in line, which he really didn't do. I mean, he took like half of his snaps there 2 years ago and played really well out of the backfield. Last year, he was hardly ever in the backfield. Are they going to try and go back to that? What are they going to do with those guys? But it's not really as much of a position battle. On defense, I think is probably where you're going to see most of the battles. And that's, settling the starting spots at all 4 defensive line positions, and then figuring out the safeties. I think Dayon's going to be one of the starters. I'm guessing the tackles will probably be some combination of Devin Danielson and David Green and Tyler Bentley. but who fills out that rotation? Is it Elliot Donald? Is it DeAndre Jules? Is it Sean Fitzsimmons? I think all those guys are going to be in the mix of those tackle spots. And then the other end starting job. I mean, it could be Bam Brema. It could be, Nate Temple. Those guys are seniors, or maybe Nakai Johnson wins the job. Maybe Sam Okunlola and Jimmy Scott battle for the job. I think you're still going to have a healthy rotation with like 4 or 5 guys, maybe 6 at defensive end rotating in. And so sorting out who they're going to start and how they're going to rotate those guys in, I think will probably be one of the more interesting battles in camp and one of the more interesting battles to watch all season, because I think you're going to see some guys sort of ascend. And you can say this at almost every level of the defense. I think you're going to see guys like improve as the season goes on. And by like mid-October, we're going to be like, damn, Okunlola's killing it out there. You know what I mean? Or boy, Nakai looks great. He's really worked himself into a starting job. I wouldn't be surprised if you have 4 or 5 different guys who start at defensive end over the course of the season and not even related to injury, just because I think it's just going to kind of be like that, where you're figuring out who these guys are. And I think safety will be the same thing. I mean, if I had to bet, I would bet on PJ O'Brien and Javon McIntyre starting. I would not be shocked in the least if it's Steph Hall and Donovan McMillan. I think all 4 of them are going to play. I think there'll be more rotation this year at safety than there was last year. I mean, last year you had Hallett and Hill, and that was it. Those were your guys. You weren't going to really rotate, because why would you? Unless you had an injury or something like that. I think this year you'll see more rotation there, because I think all 4 of those guys can play. I think Steph Hall is going to be a surprise kind of breakout player this year. I think Javon McIntyre showed some playmaking ability last year, but he's got to settle in and be more consistent with it. Donovan McMillan almost could be a linebacker. I mean, he's that big. I wouldn't be surprised if they use him. You remember when John Patrician played in like the extra linebacker spot in the Delta package? I wouldn't be surprised to see McMillan in that kind of role. And then PJ O'Brien, I mean, just needs to kind of keep his head. He has a lot of intensity and energy, and it's fun, but you can't take stupid penalties, like emotion penalties. You can't do that. You have to be a little more in control of your emotions than he has been in the past. But I think all 4 of those guys will play. So I think that'll be a big battle. And then just figuring out the D-line, the starters and the rotation, I think are probably going to be some of the biggest battles that we'll see over this next month.
So you said you get some access to camp. You see some of the practices, drills, and all that. But let's just say in this hypothetical, we find a spot around the facility where you can spy on practice all the time. Pat Narduzzi does not find out. Who would you be most interested in watching?
I mean, Phil. I mean, the quarterbacks. I mean, that's and that's kind of like cheating, because if I'm watching Phil throw, he's inevitably going to be throwing to receivers, right? So I'm kind of getting a 2-for-1 there, because those are probably the other guys I'm really interested to see. I mean, I want to see if Mumfield and Means and Reynolds can play. I mean, if they can play at a consistent high level, and a lot of it depends on how the quarterbacks throw to him. I mean, I've heard a lot about how Phil's been throwing. I thought he made some really nice throws in the spring game. Everybody says, well, he's throwing as well as he ever has and all this stuff, but I feel like I heard a lot of praise for Keaton Slovis last year too. How is he running the offense? The thing with Phil to me is like, I think when he's been at his best and most exciting in the past is like when he's like shedding a tackle and keeping a play alive and throwing the ball deep downfield. And that's great. And that's exciting. You can get a lot of big plays that way, but man, you got to run the offense. I mean, you have to be able to take them down the field in the structure of the offense. I think this offensive line will be good. They'll give him time to drop back in the pocket. He's got to be able to operate the offense and throw accurately at all the levels. I mean, short, medium, and deep. And I don't know if he's shown that a lot over the last few years at Boston College, maybe even 3 years ago. I don't even know if that was really his biggest strength of just running the offense. I think they're putting a lot of the expectations, a lot of the pressure on Cignetti and Dracovic being good buddies again, and really one knowing what the other wants to do and being able to do it. And they kind of did that at Boston College, but they're going to need to do it much better here. So if I could watch anything kind of consistently start to end of camp, it would be Phil and how he's working with the receivers and how he's operating the offense.
We'll work on the ghillie suit for you to go out there on a hill somewhere with binoculars. We'll scope that out for you.
I mean, like I'm just picturing like what was it? Gangs in New York when who was it? I think Leo DiCaprio. Who was the cop in there? John C. Reilly. Do you remember this? Do you guys see Gangs in New York? Kids watch these movies.
Completely transparent. Never watched it.
You never watched it? It's a great movie. Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, he's pretty good and everything. I mean, but anyway, long story short, a guy is splayed in the middle of the town square, just sort of hung out for everyone to see his dead corpse. Narduzzi would do that to me if I ever even attempted it. So it was a long way of getting around. I mean, like, it's on YouTube. You can find
That was worth
clip,
the payoff.
like,
That was worth the payoff.
I mean, it was. Do you guys? I mean, like, and that's not. I mean, that's partially Narduzzi, but it's like Channel 11. I feel like tried to do that when Ben Roethlisberger first came back after his like motorcycle accident. You guys remember this? They posted up on the hill across the street and tried to like video his like first practice back, and Steelers were all mad at him. I don't think they kicked him out, but when Ben did his like, reclamation tour and did all the TV, he sat down with like Sally Wiggin at Channel 4. He sat down with Bob Pompiani at Channel 2, and that was it. Channel 11 didn't get one of the special little sit-down interviews because they broke the rules by going up on the hillside. It's not. And like the FBI buildings over there, I mean, who knows what kind of equipment they've got trained on it, and Narduzzi might have the FBI working for him. You can't put anything past
or the mob.
That'd
make a little bit more sense with dudes.
Hey man, I didn't say that.
We're gonna get him in trouble.
Easy, buddy. Easy.
Hey,
how long it takes to get from Youngstown to Pittsburgh? I mean, you really want to find this out? How fast that can go down? Maybe you should edit that part out.
So we've checked off strip
Turn my
club
camera
wings
off.
in the mob.
There he's gone. You probably should keep it on. This might be evidence for later if we see you get dragged out of your room.
I'll lock the door.
Yeah, that always keeps him out.
Mm-hmm.
So Squid's address is okay. But okay, so we can't watch Phil and the receivers. We're gonna watch them if we're watching this other group. But I'm thinking the running back group. I'm just kind of interested to see, because the thought is probably Rodney Hammond, workhorse, carries a lot of the workload. But we've also seen, for as long as Narduzzi's been there, they try to have a couple running backs cycling in and out, and Rodney Hammond's probably not going to play 50 snaps a game or whatever the offense is on the field. Where do you think that kind of plays out? Do you think there's a clear number two? Is it just a running back by committee type deal, or whoever? I think they've played the hot hand in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably be a hot hand. I'm really curious about, I mean, first of all, Hammond's the only guy who's even anything close to proven out of this group, which is a little weird because he's been a backup for the last 2 seasons. But I mean, Sibo Flemister, I mean, had a pretty good November last year. I mean, he had put up most of his stats at that point, had a really nice yards per carry average. I'm really intrigued by that. Maybe, he's a guy that could function in a bigger role as a number 2. I think Derek Davis is really interesting. I mean, you have to go back to his Gateway film to find anything really to build expectations from. But I mean, he had some breakaway speed. Most of it was straight line, but he had some breakaway speed coming out of high school. And then the freshman, I mean, TJ Harvison was here all spring. So, he might be in the mix. It's some big question marks, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by Flemister. I'm intrigued by Davis. I need to find out, or I want to find out, or I'm curious to find out who's that deep threat guy. I mean, I think most of us would agree that Rodney Hammond's probably not it, right? I mean, he's probably not the guy who's, capable of breaking those 60-yard runs like Izzy did last year. So who can do it? Does Flemister have that kind of speed? Derek Davis had that kind of speed. Does he still? Is it Harvison? I think they need to find that, because I don't know what kind of big plays they're going to get out of the passing game. And I know they're losing some big plays out of the running game. And so making up for that, you got to find somebody who can break those runs a little bit. I think Rodney Hammond can do a great job keeping the chains moving, but you're going to need big plays in there somewhere. And I think I think there are guys who, I think Bub Means might be able to do it in the passing game. I keep kind of catching myself being a little too optimistic about what he might be able to do because he caught like 2 passes in the spring game and looked exciting doing it. He might be able to stretch the field a little bit, but you need somebody in the running game who can break those plays. And I don't think it's Hammond. So maybe that's a role Flemister can fill. Maybe that's a role that Derek Davis can fill. It's unknowns, but intriguing unknowns, I think, at this point.
It's actually really funny you pose this question. And here's a little Loyal Sons exclusive for you. But for the golf outing the other day, I overheard a player who will not be named, and he was talking to a fan. He was like, "Yeah, I mean, you know what you're getting with Rodney. He's gonna be a bowling ball. He's always gonna get positive yards. But man, you should see Derek Davis in space.
Oh yeah.
and I got all the goosebumps and spilled my beer a little bit. And I don't know what that's worth, but
Hey, I mean, they see them, right? I mean, they see these guys all the time, and they don't really stand to gain anything by blowing smoke up a fan's behind, right? I mean, it's probably pretty authentic. And look, and if you watch like the Gateway, his huddle film from Gateway, yeah, dude was fast. He could take off. I mean, he never really did it at LSU because he didn't have a chance to. But when he had that speed in high school, so if it's still there, and I think it'll be blocked well too. I mean, I think this offensive line will be pretty good. Maybe he's the guy. Somebody has to step up in that role, and he's as good a candidate as anybody.
Now, you mentioned that offensive line. You don't seem to think that there's going to be a lot of position battles around that. You're more focused on the defense. But as far as I'm concerned, that offensive line is far from settled, and there's 8 guys that could be, getting snaps. So if you had to estimate what is the starting offensive line week 1 against our hated rivals Wofford,
the fighting Sean Watsons. It's actually good that you mentioned it, because I do think there is a battle there on the left side of the line. I think the right side, I mean, I think Jake Cradle at center, I think Blake Sabovic at right guard, and I think Matt Consalvi's at right tackle. I think that's probably going to be what it is. But I think on the left side, you've got Branson Taylor, you've got Ryan Baer, and you've got Ryan Jacoby. And I think those 3 guys are going to battle for those 2 spots. And Baer can play either one. Taylor maybe could play either one. And when you have that kind of situation with that versatility, you can really put your best guys out there. So if it's Taylor and Jacoby, great. Taylor plays tackle, Jacoby plays guard. If it's Baer and Jacoby, Baer plays tackle and Jacoby plays guard. If it's Taylor and Baer, Taylor plays tackle and Baer plays guard. And that'll be a battle. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if you see all 3 of them playing at different times, like not in a full rotation, but maybe, particularly early in the season, like the Wofford game, really. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like every 2 series, they kind of rotate those guys around a little bit and see who really kind of figures it out. Because I think Baer, I think he's the best offensive line prospect that Pat Narduzzi has signed, and has a chance to be maybe the best offensive lineman that Narduzzi has had. And he's had 4 or 5 linemen drafted over the last 8 years. And so it's not like they've been completely devoid of talent, but I think Baer can be that good. And so I think he's going to be in the mix. It might be hard to keep him off the field. And like I say, you might see just all those guys playing out there. I do think the right side is pretty locked in, but those guys on the left, that'll be another battle. I kind of forgot about that one.
It's pretty high praise with the NFL talk, because we know our guy Brian O'Neill's made himself a little bit of money for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, he has. And I mean, like, you could go down the list. I mean, Dorian Johnson was really good. Adam Bisavati was really good. Carter Warren, had a nice career, ended up being a draft pick. But I mean, I think the expectations for Baer are that high, and I think the pedigree's there, and he's a giant, human being just standing next to him, and he's got that offensive line mentality. He can move well, and all his teammates are sort of in awe of him. I mean, I think he's going to be a guy. Oh God, I hate when people say things like that. He's going to be a guy. Here's
a guy.
He's going to be a dude.
He's a football player.
He is a football player. The thing about Ryan Baer, man, he is a football player. That's a dude who puts on shoulder pads, puts on a jersey, he puts on a helmet, and he walks out there in between those lines. He does.
Straps up his chin strap.
He does.
Lunch pail.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't move until that ball is snapped. But when that ball is snapped, you know what he does? He moves. He plays football.
Mm-hmm.
It's a guy who plays football. So, yeah, high praise there.
Do you think Pat Narduzzi would ever say after him, you know what, that guy's not a football player? Like, he plays football, but he's not a football player. That's one of his go-tos for those that don't listen to all of the press conferences.
No, he wouldn't say that after a game. What he would say is in the following offseason, after a guy transfers, he would say, the good thing is we have a football player in that position now, which I think is something we maybe didn't always have last year. That's what he would say. That's how he would put it.
That's I love what you're referencing, because that's literally what he said about Phil at the quarterback position.
Multiple times. And I mean, we get it. Like, I don't think you need to keep saying it. And he'll probably say it in training camp as well. I just, and if he asked me my thoughts on it, I would probably tell him this too. I just don't know what you gain By adding that extra part, you could talk about Phil's leadership and just leave it at that. And if people want to jump to the next conclusion, they can. I'm not sure you need to go that extra step and talk about what you didn't have last year. Like, just Phil's a great leader. Leave it at that. That's all you need to say,
But it is our job, the four of us here and all of Pitt Media. It is our job to spin that as Pat Narduzzi is not afraid to say what's on his mind. He will name names when no other coach will, and that's why we love him. That is the story that we are going with as Pitt fans and Pitt Media.
Yeah, but I guess it's one thing when he's saying that Deion Sanders shouldn't turn over his entire roster in an offseason and that you should keep the guys that you inherit. It's another to kind of kick dirt on a kid who played for you for a year, that you recruited and he trusted you and he came to your program. I mean, I just don't know what you gain from it. I don't know what the upside is. Just sort of doesn't, I don't know, but that's just me. I mean, he's got his own way of doing it. And he certainly has not really changed his approach over the last 8 years. I would say that he might be a little calmer on the sidelines, but not even that much. As far as that goes, but it's just who he is. He shoots from the. I mean, to your point, he shoots from the hip, and that's what everybody likes about it. He says what he's thinking. Just sometimes says a few things, and I'm like, oh, did you really mean to say that? Is that really what you wanted to say right now? But he said it, and it goes in the official record. I guess to his, like, the one benefit for him is when he says some of those things, sometimes his sentences get a little disjointed. So they'll put out the official transcript and it's just a bunch of like clauses with hyphens in between them. And so maybe it's hard to like trace it back to what he said. But maybe that's part of the game, playing chess. We're all just playing checkers and trying to transcribe quotes,
I forget who it was. I think it was Nick Patty who was telling us how when Narduzzi, like you said, when Narduzzi gets worked up, he just like really never finishes his sentences and he just says, okay. And then it's on to the next thought. He's like, we didn't do what we were supposed to do here. Okay. And then Nick, you didn't.
Yeah. He's like, well, maybe Nick Patty, he throws, and I mean, we're handing off, and then, and clearly there's a guy who sticks his leg out, and but the receiver's over here, and it's like, if you finished one of these sentences, it would be a great quote, man. I mean, you really could, like, you were about to accuse a guy of tripping your running back or something, but you stopped before you finished the set. Like, we need subjects and verbs here, man. Subjects and predicates is what we need, and we're getting half of it. So come on, just fill it in a little bit. Complete sentences. 2023 goal is complete sentences.
That's just reminding me a little bit of a former president. No, I'm not. No, not going there.
And yeah, no, there's nothing to be. As I talk about what is there to be gained? There's nothing to be gained from going down that road.
So back to the Magic City wings. What flavor wings did you get?
That's the only way out of this.
Shocked Panther Lairs Chris Peak is limiting my First Amendment rights.
Oh,
and there it is.
Oh, the First Amendment. Here we go.
I've been sitting on it for 40 minutes.
Congress shall make no law inhibiting your right to post on a message board. So Congress has made no law about it, but I made some. So what do you It's you'd like to think that you could let people just talk on a message board, but sometimes the anonymity of it enables people to maybe say things that you just wish, like, I really wish you wouldn't say that. It would be much more fun for us all if you just didn't say that on the message board, but then you delete posts and you get messages about it, and it's fun. It's fun times.
It's not fun for you, but when I see a post that's like, don't go to El Paso for the Sun Bowl, I'm hammering that, booking it to see what some 60-year-old thinks about the border that we share with our neighbors to the south.
I didn't make the trip into Juarez. The last. Oh no, wait, I didn't even go there. I went in 2018. And I saw the wall. It looked already built. I don't know what everybody was talking about, but it was built in that section at least. But the weirdest, did you guys go to the Sun Bowl?
I did not.
No.
Nah.
The weirdest thing is like where the media parked. Like I pull up to like a guardrail and like I get out of my car and like on the other side of the guardrail is like this cliff and like literally at the bottom of the cliff is Mexico. And I'm like, that's really how close we are. I mean, the Sun Bowl Stadium is like, you throw a stone from the top of the Sun Bowl Stadium and it lands in Mexico. I mean, it's right there, which, I mean, it, you read it on the map and you hear about it, but it's like, wow, it's right here. I mean, you're right in Mexico. And I think some of the other writers who got down there earlier actually went into Mexico, went across the walking bridge and turned around and walked back. I don't think they spent any time there, but I think in 2008, some of the players went over. Probably, it made an ill-advised decision to do so, I would say.
I know that they receive a pamphlet as soon as they get there, and so some of them, I guess, played with fire a little bit. But I remember Elijah Zeiss told us that his two thoughts from the Sun Bowl were it's probably like the prettiest view of any stadium they get to play in, and the first thing they see when they get there is do not go into Mexico. You will be sent home immediately.
Yeah, that sounds. I feel like if you guys track down Scott McKillop, I feel like either he knows about people who went into Mexico or he himself did it. So he might be he might be a source on that. I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like I've heard him talk about that before. But it is a nice setting. It's just weird because you're in Texas, but it's cold. It's not hot and dusty. It's dusty, but it's like cold down there. And it's real windy, like it was in that 2008 game. I mean, that's not atypical, but it is cool because it's like carved out of a mountain. I mean, part of the bowl goes into like a section they had to carve out of the mountain. So that's it is nice down there. It's pretty. It's such a long trip to get there. I mean, you fly through like Chicago, and it's a really long flight from Chicago, and it's probably nice to do it once or twice, but you don't need to do it much more than that.
Yeah, and then if the U.S. airline industry shuts down and you have to drive 9 hours after already flying to Texas via baseball team coach of another college, it's a whole process. So we don't want to risk it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I forgot about that story. Yeah, weird stuff. It's just better to stay home, watch again.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go to the college football playoff this year, so no Sun Bowl in the plans.
Right.
I'm sure that was what your predictions for the season 2 college football playoff.
Every year, that's always it's going to hit one of these times. I mean, you flip a coin 100 times and call tails every time. I mean, you're eventually going to get it, right? It works like that, I think.
Tails never fails. Predicting the college football playoff never fails. I just don't want to be the guy that predicts like an 8-5 season the year we actually do make it there. So why would I ever do it?
Yeah, I feel like I might have undersold 21. But I mean, there was no reason to expect 2021. Yeah, there was no reason to expect 2021 to be what it was. I mean, it was a big deal that Kenny was coming back, but he made some good throws in 2020, and obviously he was hurt for a decent amount. But it's not like he was like great, right? What did he have, like 10 touchdowns or 13 touchdowns or something like that that year? I mean, he wasn't, and the previous 2 years weren't really anything. I mean, 2019 was really bad. In 2018, they just handed the ball off all the time. I mean, you knew the kid had talent, but like there was no reason to ever expect him to throw 50 touchdowns, be a Heisman finalist. I mean, that was completely unexpected. So I don't know, maybe somebody predicted like 11 wins that year because, I mean, it's a fan message board and there are always people predicting things like that, but not too many. I don't think too many people had them succeeding like they did.
I think we didn't predict it, but we were like, all right, what is the path to 10 wins? And we mapped it out, and it didn't go exactly like that. It went better than that. But we were a little bit cautious because I think the three of us were so all in 2020, and thank Christ we didn't have a podcast in 2020 because we all like very much mapped out like they can make the play. They can make the playoff. They can make the playoff. They are going to make the playoff. So we cooled a little bit the next year.
Man, you were really inspired by that win over Eastern Michigan. That thing really fired you up. Holy cow. One win in Detroit is all it takes.
That's all it takes.
I think another thing was me and Dave were sitting there one day and we're like, well, half these conferences aren't playing. So we can just cross all these teams off the list. And then we just need a couple games to get canceled and boom, we're there.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, like, if ever there was a year to do it, this might have the kind of circumstances that would allow Pitt to get in. That's not bad logic. I mean, just
I remember that exact conversation, and I think 30 icy light mangoes preceded it.
Give or take.
Yeah, it was. But so it talking about 10-win seasons and not trying to set our expectations too high leads to an interesting question. What would you need to see at camp to leave and say, I, Chris Peak, know that Pitt is winning 10 games or more this season? What do you need to see from this team?
I mean, there's nothing I could see or really hear from camp because it just comes down to how Phil plays, and last year at this time and last year coming out of camp, I thought Keaton was going to be really, really good and he was going to be good enough to get them there. And look, if he had been slightly above average, they do win 10 games in the regular season last year. I mean, it's
weird to think about.
Yeah, but it's I mean, very realistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't exclusively him. It was the offensive coordinator and a couple like one or two bad plays by the defense in both games, Georgia Tech and Louisville. But like, if he's just not bad, they win both of those games. It's funny, like, to look at his stats from the Georgia Tech game. It's like, what do you have? 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's like, yeah, all of it happened on the last like 2 drives of the game. In the first quarter, he completed like 1 pass for -3 yards or something like that. I mean, he was just god awful in the Louisville game as well. And so coming out of camp and going into camp, I was just like, yeah, this guy's going to be really good. He's going to regain that form that he had at USC. And that's exactly what they need. He's going to be able to step right in. And, Mumpfield's going to be good. They got good running backs. It's just no problem. This is going to be, all this stuff. So like right now, I don't know what to expect out of Phil. But whatever success they have this year is going to come down to him because I've said this a bunch of times, like I feel like the defense might take a little time to get rolling just with younger players up front, younger guys in at safety. I think by the end of the year, all those guys will be playing at a really high level because I think they're really good players, but it might take a little bit of time. So you might need an extra touchdown or two to beat Cincinnati. You might need an extra touchdown or two to beat West Virginia or Carolina. But if the quarterback isn't good enough, or the coordinator's not calling the things that work for the quarterback, or the quarterback's just not executing it, I mean, you could blow those games because you're just not scoring enough points. Like 3 touchdowns isn't going to do it. Like you need to be over 30. You need to be shooting for 30 every game. And I'm sure they would have liked to score 30 every game last year, but I'm not sure they were really shooting for it. And the quarterback wasn't executing well enough to do it. So long answer to the question of like, what do I need to see in camp? I mean, nothing. It's all just got to be proven on the field. I think I have a solid feel for who most of these players are and how most of these players will do. I think the O-line will be good. I think we know what we know about backs and tight ends and receivers. Linebackers, I think, will be really good. Corners will be really good. D-line is young, but they're talented. Safeties are young, but they're talented or inexperienced at both of those spots, safety and D-line. All this stuff, we know all this stuff. It's just, is the quarterback going to be good? And if he is, then they'll be good. And if he's not, then they won't. And like, it's oversimplifying, but I think it's the easiest answer. I think this is the truest answer.
Okay, so let's continue to play with the hypothetical of the latter. The quarterback situation isn't great. Let's say Phil regresses even from where he was at Boston College when he was hurt and playing behind a papier-mâché offensive line. Do you think that this coaching staff learned from last year's mistakes, i.e. hanging on potentially a little bit too long with Keaton Slovis, aka, do you think if Phil struggles, we will see Christian Veer?
I think I do. I think if he struggles enough, I think they will make a change. I go back and forth about the situation last year. For one thing, I think Slovis won the job outright. I think he was a better option than Patty. I think everybody on the team that I've talked to has said that like, you can look back and be like, oh, maybe Patty was better. Maybe Patty would have been the better option. But I think in training camp and spring camp, what they showed that Slovis was probably the better guy. It's tricky when you get into that early stretch in October because I think Patty was still hurt from the Tennessee game. And, would you have liked to have been able to put Patty in or somebody else in the second quarter at Louisville after he throws 2 interceptions at the goal line? Yeah, probably. But if the best option, I forget if Nick Patty even made that trip or if he was healthy enough to play at that point. I don't think they had the confidence in Nate Yarnell to put him out there in that situation in an ACC game. It was one thing to kind of manage and make like 3 good throws at Western Michigan, but in an ACC game, I think they probably still felt like Keaton was the best option. If there comes a point where they don't feel like Phil is the best option, which I think if he has a game like Keaton had at Louisville and Veer is healthy, I think they'll go with Veer. I think they'll put him in. I mean,
that was kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah. I think they will. There's always this thought that Narduzzi is just like too loyal and he doesn't bench his quarterbacks. And I always bring up the example of 2017. I mean, he benched Max Brown for Ben DiNucci, and he benched DiNucci for Max Brown, and then he benched DiNucci for Kenny Pickett. I mean, he benched guys. The year before, 2 years before, he benched Chad Wojcik for Nate Peterman. He has changed quarterbacks mid-season. He's benched guys. It doesn't feel like he benches guys because he had Kenny Pickett for 4 years, and he had Nate Peterman for almost 2 years before that. So for 6 years, you had basically 2 starting quarterbacks. So yeah, it feels like, well, he just never changes quarterbacks, but he has a pretty decent, I mean, not a lot because he's had the same guy for a bunch of years, but he's done it when he felt like it was necessary. And so if he gets to a point where he feels like Phil is not the guy that's giving them the best chance to win, I think he'll make the change. I think they'll go to Veer or whoever they feel like is that next best option. I just wonder if we get to that point first, or we get to a point where Phil has to come out of a game because he gets hurt, because that's happened like every year. So I don't know. I fight against that on the message boards all the time about Narduzzi never benching quarterbacks, or that he stuck with Slovis and all this. And even in the Sun Bowl, and I got yelled at by somebody they claimed that I was the only one trying to push this narrative. Like in the Sun Bowl, Nick Patty was under 50% completions. I think he was like 3 or 4 yards per attempt. I mean, how many touchdowns did they score in the Sun Bowl? They got 15 points off of field goals. And I mean, granted, he drove them into field goal position and he made monster plays on the game-winning drive. Like, I'm never going to take that away from him. I mean, the decision to tuck the ball and run for that first down is one of the gutsiest, craziest things I've seen a football player do in a long, long time. Like, I watched that clip over and over again. And even I interviewed Nick and I was like, man, what was that point where you said, okay, this is what I'm going to do? And when you did that, like, are the consequences weighing on you that, like, you've got to get 7 or 8 yards or however many yards it is. And if you don't, the game's over. You lose. Like, you either make it there or you lose. And you watch the play over and over again, and like, he breaks a tackle and he steps out of this and that. It's amazing play. But he wasn't that good in the game overall. And so, he wins that game. He makes some great plays on that final drive. And sometimes there's a feeling, oh, he was a better option than Slovis all along. I'm not so sure that that's the case. I mean, it doesn't matter now. It's all water under the bridge. But, like, again, I think if there was a better option available, and who knows, if Patty's healthy for that Georgia Tech game or he's healthy for the Louisville game, maybe Narduzzi does make a change. But by that point, they get out of the month of October, and then they start winning games again. So even though not all of it was because of the offense in November, but so he sticks with the guy who got him there. And I don't know. So yeah, this year, I think he will make a change if Dragovic is bad. So hopefully we don't have to see that.
Yeah, to clarify, he is winning the Heisman, so this was all purely hypothetical.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. I figured that was like assumed. You know what I mean?
Just in case.
I hope I don't have to hear Dracovic is bad, those 3 words together at any point, anytime soon. So.
I mean, one of his passes will be incomplete, so somebody sitting next to you will say it, right? I mean,
oh my God, it's like you sit in our section.
Or I actually, the press box is the same way. But but I mean, I read the message boards, I mean, the game thread is like being in a section with like hundreds or thousands of people all screaming into your ear at one time. That's what the game thread is like. And every incomplete pass, every time the other team gains a yard, I mean, the entire program should be shut down. So it's good to have that. It's good to have that document of emotions. It's fun to see it.
If you had to estimate, how many times has Narduzzi been fired on Panther Lair?
I mean, every game. Every game, somebody says, "Oh, he's never gonna get it done. The program's never gonna take a step forward." I mean, literally every game. I think in every game thread, you could find a post like that, and it doesn't matter if it's what was like the biggest? I mean, probably the Virginia game last year. Like, a game where literally from the very first play from scrimmage, it was going well for Pitt. At some point in that game thread, somebody was like, man, I just don't know about Narduzzi. I think we've seen enough. It's been 8 years. I mean, like, I would almost guarantee that post is in that thread somewhere.
Yeah, the next day there was we should have won that game by 60, and we didn't because he took his foot off the pedal.
Yeah. How can you have 2 pick sixes to open the game and only win by that much? I mean, he just doesn't have that killer instinct. You got to win with points in college football, and that's not wrong. But I mean, come on, man, be a little reasonable.
No, we won't be.
That's the response I get usually when I implore people to be reasonable. Yes, sounds right.
And then they contact lawyers.
Yes, they let me know that I'll be hearing from their attorney. I never heard from an attorney, actually. Unfortunately, all these years of message board moderation, I have yet to be contacted by an attorney. Even people who tell me they are attorneys, I never hear from their attorneys. It's crazy.
Well, if you do, hit up our boy Guido. He doesn't do that kind of law, but this was an opportunity for an ad placement. So,
okay. I don't know, Guido. Do you want to tell me more about him or his services or a promo code or anything? Or
his personal injury attorney, guerrerolaw.com, GURRERALAW.com. I hate myself. I hate what we've become. We should probably get to wrapping this up.
You should sell out. I mean, the point of doing any of these things is to sell out, right? I mean, isn't that why we all do this?
It's a fine line of selling out.
Do you guys do it for a different reason? It's not for selling out? Oh, all right. Okay.
We've gotten some free T-shirts, and that was pretty much good enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, that counts. That counts.
Yeah. So we can't tell you how much we appreciate having you on. One of our favorite guys to talk to. Just one of the best people in Pittsburgh sports media. But before we let you go and let you enjoy the rest of your Monday night, we need 2 predictions from you. The first is, who is going to win the Camp Hype Train Award this year? Previous years, it has gone to Jalen Twyman, Izzy Abanikanda, Bengali Kamara. And then after that, tell us how many games Pitt is going to win this year.
Oh, I was hoping that the second one would be like the first one and we wouldn't get around to actual record predictions. So if Kamara was the guy before, does that mean I can't pick him again?
You're already the conductor of the Bengali Kamara.
I mean, I am driving that thing right. I mean, like I'm going coast to coast with it. So, I mean,
we'll let you quadruple down if you want.
I will. I mean, I like the dude is going to be, I mean, he's going to fill the stat sheet. I mean, it's going to be tackles for loss, sacks, interceptions, fumbles. I mean, like he's going to be first team all ACC. He's going to be an NFL draft pick next spring. I mean, you saw flashes of it last year, and this year it's going to come together, and he's just going to be a force out there. And then on offense, I'm going to go with Bub Means. He made 2 catches in the spring game that I don't think he did anything like that at all in all of last season, basically. So I think he'll. I think he's going to be the guy that. What I'm going to just keep saying about him, and I'm going to try and like couch it with enough caveats that I give myself wiggle room to get out of it if it doesn't happen. But he's a guy. I think he's got all the physical attributes that if he can just figure out how to be a consistent wide receiver, if he could be a football player, like he can be, I think he could be a stud. I think he can have 1,000-yard season. He can catch like 8 touchdowns. And I think he can be really good. Cause I mean, like he's got size, he's got speed, he's athleticism and all this stuff. Like you got all the things that you can't teach. Well, all right. So teach him the other things that you can teach so he can be a really good wide receiver because you need a number 1 on this team. I think one of my, I probably said this at some point this summer. I'll predict it a bunch of times. Like I think Mumfield will lead them in receptions. I think Means will lead them in receiving touchdowns. I think he'll be a real weapon for them. So, we're getting that train pulling out of the station. The Kamara train, that's a few stops down the line. That thing's running at full steam. But we'll get the Bub Means train going too. So he'll be my guy on offense that I'll probably. I'm giving this all away now. I mean, geez, it's supposed to be a slow build through training camp, like 3rd week of I've been really hearing some good things about Bub Means, and now I'm ready to commit to it. I think he is set for a breakout season. Hopefully everybody forgets that I said this like 3 weeks from now when I actually write that. But yeah, he would probably be my guy. And wins, like, I mean, like with his schedule, all right. Notre Dame, Florida State, those are tough. Carolina is going to be tough, just because, like, they're going to need Phil to be able to score with Drake May. You know what I mean? Like, because even last year they did an okay job against May early, but they just couldn't stop him. They couldn't continue stopping him through the second half. And so if that's how it's going to be, then you got to be able to score. And the reality is, for as good as this defense is, and you guys know this as well as I do, they are liable to get 500 yards and 45 points dropped on them at any time by a competent quarterback, right? I mean, we've seen it happen enough. It's not going to happen in every game, but it's always a possibility if you're playing against a good quarterback. And so Drake May is perfectly capable of that kind of performance. So you better be capable of scoring 46, and by week 4, are they going to be up to that level? I don't know. So realistically, I mean, I think they're capable of 9 or 10 wins. Reality is probably, so much of it depends on the quarterback. I mean, I'm sitting here like, I'm going to say the reality is probably 8. You know what I mean? And then they win a bowl game and they go 9 wins again, and it's good. And a 9-win season is good. But the quarterback's going to be the difference between 8 in the regular season, 9 with a bowl, and winning 9 or 10 in the regular season, maybe going to Charlotte and really achieving something, and having another really big year for the program. It's just the quarterback play, and it's impossible to predict. So if I have to pick something, I'll pick 8, I guess. 9, if we want to be optimistic, if we want to, say that they won't have. Yeah, if we want to say, because look,
we'll put you down for 10.
That's great. But I mean, like, if we want to say, all right, even if you give them Notre Dame, Florida State, and Carolina, I mean, okay, that still leaves 9 games that you should be able to win. Just don't screw it up like you screwed it up against Georgia Tech and you screwed it up against Louisville. You just can't have that kind of mistake. You get your 3 losses that are acceptable and then win the other. So, I mean, capable of 9, probably going to be 8 is my guess right now, unless Phil is great and he throws like 30 touchdowns. If Phil throws 30 touchdowns, maybe if he throws like 28 or 27, I think they're going to Charlotte because I think the defense will catch up by in time to make it count. But I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it.
He will, and we are.
Right. Yeah. And you
so
put me down
11
for
wins.
10.
Got it.
11. We're up to 11 now. Good. I like it. Well, counting the bowl game, 11, right?
Do I hear 12? Oh, okay. if we keep you on here any longer, this could get ugly quick.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be 12 because they'll lose the tiebreaker, so they won't go to Charlotte. So they'll win 10 in the regular season, but they'll lose the tiebreaker because they lose to they beat Notre Dame, but they lose to Carolina and Florida State. So they'll lose a tiebreaker to Florida State, and Florida State will end up in Charlotte, but Pitt will still get to what bowl game would they probably get with 10 wins? Maybe they'll end up in Charlotte.
Cheez-It Bowl? Belk Bowl?
Which one? Yeah, maybe is Belk Bowl still in Charlotte? Is that still?
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I thought
or is that the Duke's Mayo?
Yeah, it's confusing. They should identify it by their city names. That's easier for me to remember. Call it Birmingham.
And not their lovely corporate sponsors.
I mean, unless it's BBVA, I can't. I don't associate any. I don't associate any sponsor with a bowl game. So that's the only one. There's BBVA Compass, and then there's everything else.
The Mayo Bowl is in Charlotte.
Thank you. So that'll be it. So they win 10 in the regular season. They lose the tiebreaker to Florida State, and they go to Charlotte to play in the Mayo Bowl. They win, they get their 11th win, and everybody is really excited because Phil opts out, and Bear leads them to victory, completing less than 50% of his passes and 4.3 yards per attempt, but has a monster game-winning drive to close it out. There it is.
And Narduzzi gets his Mayo Gatorade bath, and we go out in the town, get some wings, and
catch the first flight to Atlanta and go to Magic City.
If it goes down like this, wings. The 4 of us are polishing off a full jar of mayonnaise together.
I was hoping you were going to say that if it goes down in some way that ends up with Pitt in the Peach Bowl, the four of us would go get some lemon pepper wings at Magic City. And I was going to be like, yeah, that'll be fun. Let's do it. But you had to go the mayo route. That's gross.
Sorry.
It's all right. I mean, we'll do what we have to do. But
for the love of the game, for the love of the University of Pittsburgh.
And the love of
I'm
mayonnaise,
not eating mayo for
apparently.
anything. Not a jar of mayo. I won't do it. So quit asking.
All right. Well, this is spiraling. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun.
I feel like we started off here, you know what I mean? And I feel like we really we hit the top of the mountain, and then we sort of ended up back where we began. I feel like we came full circle on all this. So I feel like that was a good. It was a character arc. I feel like for all of us, we wanted to journey here.
We did Campbell's whole hero's journey.
Yeah. Third act was really strong, I thought. Just kind of as we brought it back to Magic City, and then you included mayonnaise in it, and I don't really want to associate the two concepts. So we'll let that one slide out. Maybe the second act was the strong point of the show, but we did a good job.
Thanks, I say we just cut it right there.
Let's freeze like a freeze frame, like SNL, that kind of thing.
We're usually so good at just like definitive stopping points with interviews, but this is definitely going to be one where we're just in post production. It's midnight on Sunday, and we're just like, fuck it. At the second joke about strippers and mayonnaise.
One of you just needs to step up here and be like, this was great. Everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week or something like that. Someone needs to assert themselves here.
And now for our ad.
Are you or someone you know looking for work in a recession-proof industry? Are you someone that's interested in things like having health care, having a 401k, immediate PTO accrual, an employee assistance program, or referral payouts? Our newest sponsor, Haddad Accelerated Delivery, an Amazon delivery partner, is looking for safety-minded and dependable drivers to join their delivery service team. Be a part of a company that will encourage self-ownership and award bonuses based on exceptional safety and delivery efforts. This is the ideal gig for individuals seeking full-time work or students interested in making some pretty good money during breaks. If you or someone you know is safety-focused, hardworking, organized, efficient, and team-oriented, text HADD to 464-646 to apply. I understand that is an impossible string of letters and numbers, so here it is again. That's HADD to 464-646. For a job that's the total package, get it? Because, it's deliveries. Haddad Accelerated Delivery is the place for you.
Thank you again to Chris Peak from Panther Lair for joining us. That was interesting. We covered a wide range of topics, but I think one thing we can sum up from that is if we're eating lemon pepper wings with Chris Peak sometime in January, it was probably a pretty good season for the Panthers. So fingers crossed. But before we let you go and go on with your week, we've got some final thoughts. Now, these final thoughts are brought to you by Guerrera Law. Now, Squid, this past week, as always, there was high point, low point. High point, Pitt just landed a 4-star running back, number one player in the state of New Jersey, Yassine Willis. Low point, the Zoo crew, the legends, the former players, former Pitt basketball players, kind of got their heads caved in by
Wasn't pretty.
by
Was not
Marshall's
pretty.
alumni team in the TBT. Another high point, got to see all of those Sam Young pump fakes. Low point, watching the Marshall team catch alley-oops from half court and dunk on Gilbert Brown. But, that's the life of a Panther fan. It's full of highs and lows, and regular everyday life can be the same too. Maybe you're cruising down Bigelow Boulevard, get into an accident. Maybe your insurance company isn't treating you fairly, or maybe other firms won't take your case seriously. If you find yourself in a situation where you need help, call Guido at Guerrera Law. He'll help you turn your losses into an ACC championship win. GuerreraLaw.com. That's GURRERALAW.com. Or you can call him at 412-229-7757. Guido is licensed in Pennsylvania and Ohio and is located right here in Pittsburgh. So to move forward with final thoughts, Squid, I'll let you kick it off for us. I think I already alluded at one of them in our ad read.
Yeah, we'll start with that. Big commitment from Yassine Willis. It was a name we've been hearing about for a while. Back whenever the June official visit frenzy was happening, we thought he might commit, but there were still so many big name schools after him. You really couldn't get your hopes too high up. But whatever happened, went in the Panthers' favor.
Yeah, I mean, he's the number one ranked player in the state of New Jersey. It's not like landing the number one player in North Dakota. Like, New Jersey is loaded with talent every year. So he's a big time talent, big time prospect. His final three were Pitt, Rutgers, and Alabama. One of those three is not like the other, obviously, considering Rutgers is not the powerhouse that Pitt and Alabama is. Interesting, recruiting can be weird because he has Alabama in that final three, but it's like, was Alabama really pursuing him? I'm going to say they were, and they wanted him, and he was their top priority. But sometimes interesting when a kid picks Pitt over in Alabama when it's not a local guy. But hey, we'll take it. Can't wait to get him on campus. 6'1", 220, power runner. Looks athletic as all hell too. So it's a big landing for the Panthers recruiting class. They already had Juelz Goff from York, Pennsylvania, so it gives them a little bit of thunder and lightning in the backfield for this 2024 class. And it was kind of a much needed commitment, I think. Pitt had missed out on a couple 4 stars, some guys that we felt pretty good about, and felt like maybe some of that momentum was wearing off for this recruiting class, but Narduzzi and company went and landed another big fish.
Do yourself a favor, watch his highlights. They're legit.
Yeah, he's a grown-ass man. Grown-ass man playing against kids. Yeah, that's huge. So my final thought is we would be remiss to not talk about the golf outing from last week out at Quicksilver. Shout out once again, Rendine Consulting, Snapper 49 for putting that on. We were able to raise over $8,500 for Snapper 49. Obviously, Byron Floyd's charity to benefit UPMC Children's Hospital. Just an amazing event, and I'm not just saying that because we're a part of it. It was an awesome day. We had close to 20, maybe 24 current Pitt athletes out there, 25 different foursomes playing. So appreciative of all the fans who came out to play, and I think anyone will tell you who shows up, like, it's a great time, so don't miss out on it next year. But just really appreciative of everyone who came out, the players appreciative of us, like, thank you for having us. It's like, thank you for coming out and spending your day golfing with us. And all the fans who came out and just, made very good job of not being weird around student athletes, just having a good day on the links, showing some guys how to play some golf if they don't play, or maybe showing them some pointers if they do. And the Patties were there, but they did not bring home the championship this year. They were not able to defend last year's. I think they were 12 under last year. The winning score was a 59 this year. So, sorry, I don't have the names of the winners off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was a competitive year. I know last year was thrown together quick. There are a lot of people out there like us who aren't the best golfers and are more there for just hanging out, having some beers, talking about Pitt. This year, it was competitive too. So on top of the fun Pitt fan experience, there was some good golf being played for a change. A lot of guys were telling us, we can't wait to come back next year. We got to hit Top Golf in the driving range a few times. They were obviously super competitive. I know Blake Hinson was maybe the most competitive. He was out there trying to make putts all day. Eventually got one in, but these guys are so good at everything. It's frustrating to not be amazing at a game like golf when they see like guys who are like 5'8",
Like us.
150 pounds, like hitting the fairway, making putts, chipping. They're like, how is that guy better at a sport than I am? So they're competitive, real good sports, hanging out with the fans. Great. I always say it. Great candid environment to get just chat with these guys a little bit about sports, get their perspectives on Pitt, all kinds of fun stuff before the season actually gets going. So we're excited to see these guys take the field soon, but glad we got to have some fun before then.
Yeah, definitely. I know there was some Derek Davis hype out there for Pitt fans. That's just, these guys don't have any reason to BS us when we're just talking to them out on the golf course. So that was good to hear. Just wanted to say once again, Squid and I played with Gavin Bartholomew for the second straight year. We also brought on a third. David did not play. He just cruised around the cart, took pictures. As he said, he's retired from the game of golf. But Mike Vaughn, shout out to Mike Vaughn as our fourth member of our foursome, stuck on a par 3, stuck one to about 6 inches, and that allowed Blake Henson to hit his first celebrity putt of the day. So I know that made Blake's day. So thank you, Mike. And Gavin, talking about like these guys being good at everything. Gavin Bartholomew, obviously like 6'5", 250 pounds. He just absolutely mashes the ball. There was 2 shots on the day outside of his several drives that we used that went 300 plus yards. But the first one, I want to say, was hole 15, and we were about 245 off the green, and he pulls out a 5-iron. And I'm like, I mean, I would beg to get this like almost to the green with my 3 wood, but he pulls out a 5-iron, and we're like, dude, you rope that. And we go to look for the ball and we can't find it. We're like, maybe he sent it in the water over here. But no, it was just on the other side of the green. So he hit a 5-iron about 260. And then on the 17th hole, we were about 195 out. He pulls out a 7-iron, sticks one to about 8 feet, and we eagled that hole to finish 4 under for the day. So yeah, these guys are just absurd athletes. If they play the game enough, they figure it out. And watching him hit a golf ball is a sight to see.
Yeah, they all have fun, even if they aren't that good. I know Dayon, he said his game improved from a 0 out of 10 to a 1 out of 10. His putting was nice this year, he said. So these guys love getting out there, giving it a shot a little bit. I believe the quote
was, my putting's nice. I almost made one.
Yeah, so it's baby steps. Phil Jerkovic, QB1, good outing. He allegedly made like a 60-foot putt.
I love to hear that.
Mm-hmm. Ice in his veins, just steps up. No nerves, buries it from downtown. I'm sure we'll see some 60-yard bombs on the field this year.
All I know is 2 years ago, Kenny Pickett wins the outing. Last year, Nick Patty wins the outing. Both have iconic moments in a bowl game or in an ACC championship game, in a bowl game. So it only makes sense that, Phil has an iconic moment at the outing and an iconic moment during the season that we'll be waiting for. But yeah, once again, thank you to everyone for coming out. And thank you for all of you for listening to this episode. Thank you to Chris Peak for coming on, spending the day with us. And I guess, hey, everyone, it's football season. It's back. Even if it's just training camp, we are back. The pads are on, and we're ready to go. We're just about a month from being in the gold lot to watch our Pitt Panthers. So we'll have a lot coming out for you this August. We're getting ready for the season. It's a busy, busy time for us, but we couldn't be more excited. So, as always, hail, loyal sons of Pittsburgh.